G'day ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Draw with JAZZA. I'm JAZZA and this video is on creating an animatic. Now that might seem like a bit of a foreign word to some people. An animatic is like the rough version of an animation where it's very sketchy. It's the equivalent of a sketch compared to a final painting or drawing. The difference is where a sketch kind of gives a bit of a guide as to what a final image will be, an animatic gives a guide as to what the final animation will be. So specifically, it's very focused on communicating timing, on communicating motion and staging and things like that. So the example I'm going to give is from a client job I did about 7 months ago, and the first thing I'm going to show you is the animatic that I gave them at the very start of the production process for one scene in particular.
You can see your seat from afar. Surely this shouldn't be such a long process. And yet, there you are, waiting in line while people are shifting around for the person who has the window seat, or managing luggage as if it were a game of Tetris. It's an unorganized mess nearly all of the time. A bag juggling, boarding pass struggling, seat shuffling mess.
So as you can see, it's very sketchy. So you zoom out from one thing to another and you're showing the basics of motion of what the scene will be. And now in my mind as an animator, I know how the scene is going to lay out, but it's also beneficial for me to do it in the program so I can also see when I do the final animation how it's going to feel and how I'm going to organize it. But the other reason it's so important is because I can present that to the client and say this is what it's going to look like and how it will be paced, and they can have a say in things like, can you make this segment longer, can you position the camera a bit differently, and it's much easier to do that after the animatic stage than if you're doing it in the middle of animation. Now this is what the final outcome of that scene looks like.
You can see your seat from afar. Surely this shouldn't be such a long process. And yet, there you are, waiting in line while people are shifting around for the person who has the window seat, or managing luggage as if it were a game of Tetris. It's an unorganized mess nearly all of the time. A bag juggling, boarding pass struggling, seat shuffling mess.
As you can see, aside from the very obvious visual differences, the whole thing is actually identical. The camera motion is exactly the same, the pacing and the timing and even the audio, it's all exactly the same. So the animatic is very important, and if you can get the timing right and the pacing right, it's the best foundation to begin with. Now last week we did a tutorial on creating storyboards and the uses of that, and if you want to check that out, make sure to click here to go view it. But we're going to use the storyboards that we made from that video in the animatic production process here. So I'm going to play what I've done, and you can see how in its final animatic form it follows the storyboard sequence exactly, but it's much more entertaining and fluid to watch, and it really gives a very clear depiction of what's going to happen in the final result. So what I'm going to do is take you through what I've done here just to give you a bit more understanding as to how I've done it. And if you're interested in digging your hands into it, the reference file for this is completely free. You just click on the link in the description and you can get the flash file for this. So what I've got happening here is quite a lot of things, but I'm going to go through bit by bit and just have it unfold. First things first, what we've actually already seen is where the pencil comes down and the character is drawn. What I've done is I've added some motion to this character. Now I'm going to hide some of these layers here because I have these sketch placeholders, as you can see, and I'll explain those in a moment, but we're going to focus on the character right now. So I've got his motion and I've changed it from a static image, and as he appears, that all happens in one graphic where a mask slowly reveals the character. So if I unhide the mask, you can show that that is what is being revealed, and then once that has finished, I create a new keyframe with just that looping. Now as you can see on the very top layer, I have my VCam. This is a dynamic camera which I can move around and tween, and that's much easier than moving everything around the stage. Instead you just move the camera, and it's very quick and easy to make tweaks and stuff, and if you want to access that, again, it's in the reference file. So what I've got here is the camera zooming in and panning up as the character is drawn, and then while the character is looping, the camera zooms out. Now I'm going to reveal what I hid just before, which are these sketch placeholders, and what they are, I'll go into one of them. Let's say this one here. When I double click it, this box with the word sketch is simply just a mark as to where it is, and how I've created that is it's a button with nothing but the word sketch in the box on the hit frame. That means it will never be visible when you play the movie. It just means it's like a hit area. Now this has other functions for code and stuff, but I don't want to get into that and overcomplicate it. Basically what I use it for is when something appears out of nothing, on the very first frame, there's nothing to select if I want to go into it and edit it. And especially if it's a movie clip where you don't actually see the duration of it playing, it's invisible the whole time. So I create a placeholder on the first frame so that I can enter it. And what I have other than that placeholder is a mask that slowly makes this sketch appear. Now in the final version of the animation, I'm going to have it look like it's being hand drawn out and look much more fluid, but for the sake of the animatic, I'm just doing a masked tween right now, and all of them are identical essentially, but with a different sketch. So if I enter this one here, you can see that it's a placeholder, which when I hide is just a mask between this sketch, which looks like this, and the mask thing itself. So all of them are the same. There's a torso, there's an arm, there's an eye and a hand. I may or may not add more with the final animation, but for now I just want to give the full impression that as the character's being drawn and is running, all these illustrations are appearing around him. So that happens, and then what happens next is we reach this pile of buckets and the camera kind of pulls in as he slows down, crouches, and leaps forward through there. And as you can see, there is no full animation except for some simple keyframe poses on the character. The buckets themselves only have 2 frames just to show where the impact is. Now the character, if I hide everything but the character, you can see I've got quite a lot of motion happening here, and this is going to be really important in helping me get everything look really fluid when I'm doing the full animation. So I've got my keyframe poses and extremes, and then when I do the actual character, I'll be doing it with a refined drawing, but I'll be doing in-betweens as well. I just wanted to make sure I get the motion exactly right, because this is the most dynamic moment of animation in the whole clip. So in doing that and planning it out meticulously, everything else will fall into place when I actually do it. Otherwise, as you can see, I've got this big splashback that will appear behind him. I've just got it very translucent at the moment, just so it's very light and you know where it is, but while there's only this sketchy thing, it's too bright and commanding of my attention away from this character's line work. And just like in the original intro, we have the character smack, the sign, and the word JAZZA appear, and then we fade out. So I have 2 fade outs. The first one is when he whacks the sign, the color area fades out to white, so we just have the original logo, and then we have an overall fade out above that. Now everything might look quite complicated to you in terms of how the layers are organized if you're not used to Adobe Flash, but if you take the reference file and go into it bit by bit, you can actually see that it's fairly simply constructed, and it's a really clear base to work from. So I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial today on creating an animatic. I hope you can see that as we set out to do, we turned the storyboards into a full motion animation, which goes only very slightly over 7 seconds, which is exactly what I wanted. Some slight changes from the storyboards, but really not that much different. Everything turned out pretty much as I was hoping. So stick with me next week and we'll get started on the animation. Thanks for joining me, ladies and gentlemen, and until next time, I'll see you later. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to my channel to see new content every week. Check out more of my stuff by clicking the annotations over there. You can get the reference files for this tutorial by clicking the link in the description, and if you want the reference files for all the tutorials I've ever made, check out the tutorial archive. If you're looking for a great place to collaborate, explore, or share your own content, head over to newgrounds.com. That's it for now, and until next time, see you later.